Hi everybody, I'm Jody Peel and this is Third Space Live pre-show. Third Space Live is a great new show that offers conversations, ideas and stories around mental wellness. I'm the Executive Director of Third Space Charity. You can learn all about what we do, our programs and services, and sign up for our newsletter on our website at thirdspacecanada.org. You can follow us on Facebook or Instagram, and you can also view recordings of all these shows on our YouTube channel. In a few minutes, I'll be introducing our guest tonight, Melissa Berry Appleton. I'm super excited about tonight. Oh, hi everybody. I see so many people. I'm gonna leave the comments on until I bring Melissa on board, because unfortunately the comments and the questions, the text covers her face once I have her join. So I usually turn it off during the show, but I'm gonna work on figuring out a better way to interact with all of you for next week. Before we begin, I'm going to do the two things I always do before every show. And the first one is to thank the team at Third Space Coffee in Landmark 2, Kelowna, who virtually overnight, when this pandemic hit, created an online ordering system and a safe pickup, and have been doing great work, not only serving first line workers around town, but providing people with amazing coffee and snacks. Today was actually donut day, and I brought 6 home for my family, and they are ridiculously good. So I feel a little bit guilty telling you about that, because it's hard to stop eating them when you start. But delicious donuts, and you're supporting a great cause by supporting Lonnie and Jocelyn and Destiny and the whole team there. Also, if you use the code Third Space Loves You, you can get 20% off your purchase right now. Now, my gratitude practice is my second piece that I always do right before the show, and I don't want to take too long, but there was an Instagram post by someone named Thomas Zimmer, who's on I've shared it on my personal Instagram page, who talked about how weird it is, this pandemic, about this weird mix of constantly feeling like you're overreacting and then underreacting, maybe at the same time, and that it's this weird mix of normalcy and emergency. And with the government announcement in at least our part of the world, in British Columbia, that came out yesterday and is evolving, looks like we're going to get some changes soon. So I'm starting to feel excited that we're going to be able to loosen up a little and see some people. But now there's this whole new set of rules I'm going to have to figure out. And now I'm going to have to renegotiate how our family decides to honor those rules or interpret those rules, which hasn't been easy till now. So yeah, I gave someone advice the other day, and I'm really good at giving advice, not so good at following it myself. I heard myself say, and it was wise, remember what you can control and what you can't control, and you have the power to focus on what you can control. So that's hard, and I'm trying to do that, and one of the ways I know how to do this from my amazing therapist, who actually I got to see today, and she reminded me of this, like she does every time I spend time with her, maybe a couple times every time I spend time with her, to just notice, when you're feeling up and down and scared and stressed, she keeps saying notice, just notice that. And I didn't know what that meant before, but now I get it. Noticing means that you feel a strong, maybe not so good feeling, and you don't run off and do something about it. You don't react to it. You don't try to get rid of it. That was my old trick, right? When you don't feel good, quickly do something, get rid of this feeling. Distract yourself, eat something, drink something. The problem with that is that as soon as that distraction or that food or whatever wears off, that feeling's still there, and you haven't learned anything about it or processed it, so it's not effective. So by kind of being curious about your feeling and just sitting with it, it will pass through you. And it's amazing when you do it enough times and long enough, and you end up figuring stuff out. It's a little bit like magic, but it'll make sense to you and you'll feel better. So that's what my gratitude's about today, is to thank my teachers and all the wise teachers who taught her, and so on since the beginning of history, for this wisdom. And I'm going to choose to be thankful and to notice my feelings, and that's the best I can do right now. So before we begin, I'm going to remind you all of a couple things. We're still open and super interested to hear your feedback on all our shows and ideas for future topics and different formats. Email me at jody@thirdspacecanada.org. And I think I'm going to jump right into the show because I was running a little late today. I had to wrangle down all my pets and lock them out of my bedroom because they were driving me crazy. So let's start the show. Hi, everybody. This is the official start of Third Space Live. Today is episode 13 and it's May 7th, 2020. Today we're going to be speaking with our guest, Melissa Berry Appleton, all about family ritual and using the example of the family dinner. I had so much fun with her today talking about this talk. I can't wait to get going. But I do have to remind you that I'm here representing Third Space Charity, located in Kelowna, British Columbia. You can learn all about us on our website at thirdspacecanada.org. You can also sign up for our newsletter, follow us on Facebook or Instagram, or view all of our shows on our YouTube channel, Third Space Charity. Also, if you're viewing this on YouTube, please don't forget to like or subscribe and give us your comments and feedback. All right, Melissa, I'm going to introduce you. And I'm doing it well. So I've had Melissa on the show before, for those of you who follow us every week. Melissa is very well known in our community. She's a meditation. Oh, hi, Melissa.
Hi.
You're sideways. There we go.
Okay, there we go. I'm turning
Melissa is very well known in our community as a meditation, yoga, and somatic movement educator. She was also previously the executive director of ENSO Society for Contemplative Engagement, and she most recently completed her Masters of Divinity and is now an ordained Buddhist Chaplain. Way to go, Melissa. Melissa has also worked as a music and recreation therapist, as well as an addiction counselor in a women's recovery center. Melissa is super passionate about people and community, and she holds a keen interest in supporting frontline workers and social workers and anyone living with trauma and grief. She is married, has 3 teens, and has a really cute black lab named Soma that my one dog is very mean to every time we go out hiking, and it's super embarrassing. But she still likes me and we're still friends. So welcome to our show, Melissa, once again. I'm going to turn off the comments so that I can see your face. There. How are you?
I'm good. You can see like my film and set crew is working on precision and alignment here. There we go.
So I got teased for the last 2 days about everybody seeing my dirty clothes in the back corner of my last show. So I've tried to frame it better so you can't see all my dirty clothes in the back because I didn't clean them up. They're still there.
Perfect.
Yeah. All right. This is going to be a good one tonight. I'm going to let you start by introducing yourself and some housekeeping stuff, and then we'll dive in.
Okay, great. Well, the first thing I want to do is just kind of qualify. I go by the pronouns of she and hers. I'm a mom. I have 3 teenagers. And my only expertise in this area has been that I've been making family dinners, I don't know, for like over 20 years. I am well trained in making family dinners. And that my teachers really are my mother, my grandmothers, and my aunts and my dad and my uncles. So I'm really drawing on their resource tonight. I'd also like to say that while my family looks traditional in that there's a mother and a father and 3 teenagers, families come in many different shapes and forms. So sometimes there's single parents. Sometimes families are just 2 people. Sometimes there's 2 moms. Sometimes there's 2 dads. Sometimes people are from transgender representation. People come from all kinds of different cultures and religious backgrounds. And my perspective and my sharing tonight will be filtered through a lens of my experience, and many people will relate to it, but there'll probably be some gaps in what I share. But hopefully there's a little thread for everybody.
I think there is, because another type of family is a chosen family. And so it doesn't matter what the family looks like or where they came from. The things that we're planning on talking about tonight, I think everybody will be able to relate to at some level.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been interested in the art of family dinner for a really long time. And it's been kind of this topic of interest that I have discussed with many of my friends and people in my community. So tonight I wanted to go through, what are the benefits of family dinner? People might actually be experiencing way more family dinner in the past 2 months because of our housebound COVID protocol that we've been working with. So, what are the benefits? What's research saying about family dinner? I'd like to take a look at some of our generational influences and what dinners have been like through the past couple of generations. And then I'd like to shake it up a little bit and talk about the real gong show 21st century family dinner that most of us are actually experiencing and some of the challenges that we're up against. And after we go through the reality of what we're doing today and what we're up against today, I hope to shed a little bit of light um, and spin a little bit of humor and story that will transcend through time.
Awesome. And I think it's important for us to also always be mindful during tonight is that the family dinner is literal, but it's also a metaphor for any family ritual. So a lot of what you're going to be speaking to tonight is applicable to other family rituals.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. Could
Mm-hmm.
be tea time, coffee time, could be breakfast, lunch, Easter, Christmas, Hanukkah, so many things.
Yeah, great. Okay, so you said you were going to open up with a little bit of data and statistics and research. So that
Okay,
there's some science behind this. Tell us about that.
okay. Well, right before I get into the science piece, and I have notes here with me today because I'm not a scholar on family dinner. I'm a mom of family dinner. So I've got notes here.
Okay.
It's like my recipe, actually. So,
Awesome.
the first thing that I want to say about family dinner and the things that kind of like the highlight words of what it really does for us. So, family dinner really connects us, it kind of brings us into commune together. It provides comfort because there's routine and nourishment that keeps coming back. There's security in the way we expect these kind of rituals to unfold in a pattern over and over again. And it's secure also because we're committed to keep returning to a ritual. There's a kind of love and intimacy that happens in ritual because, especially in family, because it's not happening solo, we're actually doing it together. We're giving our family members our face time. There's trust that is built in that predictability of routine, a sense of belonging, a sense of home. There's a shared wisdom that happens. So much wisdom happens in family gatherings and family rituals, and especially when people sit down to share food. The wisdom of children at the table, of parents at the table, of other family members, of guests that we have into our homes, even of people who aren't present at our table, maybe people who have passed away, other generations, when we elicit stories about those people to remember those people.
And also make the food that they made and remember the taste and the smell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And it's true, Jody, like because eating is it's like a sensual experience. We're using so many of our sense organs in that process. So it becomes intimate with the food in our bodies, which creates more intimacy with the people that we're spending time with. Now, I am I'm kind of beautifying this because let's just think about what we're actually doing here. I'm talking about mealtime. We're sitting down, we're taking food, we put it in our mouths, and then, like with our teeth and our tongues, we mash it up into a pulp and swallow it so that it'll be utilized for energy and nourishment to stay alive. Like it's kind of gross, right? And so, one of the nice things that this ritual does is like how we've cultivated ritual through generations, we kind of tried to beautify it to make it a little bit more, I don't know, sophisticated, more of an art and an experience than just mashing up food and swallowing it down into our belly. So here's the stats, some of the things that I pulled up that's been recorded through research. Of families who sit down together to share meals, this is specifically.
Okay.
So families that sit down together eat more fruit and more vegetables.
So they eat healthier.
They eat healthier. Kids who regularly eat in family develop a broader love for food. There's far more variety and love for food. There's a strengthening of ties and relationships with family, not just family, but also friends and community. Dinner builds a strong sense of belonging, and it really helps to develop children's self-esteem. At the dinner table, we learn manners sometimes, or we dream about having better manners. We try. Habits. We learn social dialogue and how to communicate in groups. We develop a healthy relationship with our food and with our body because we're actually in one place, in one time. It is kind of like a mindfulness kind of practice. We reduce the risk of engaging in high-risk behaviors, specifically for teenagers. Kids who have eaten regular meals in family, when they become teenagers, they engage in far less risky behaviors, like substance abuse, violence, and they also have fewer psychological challenges as they develop and grow.
That's super interesting.
Yeah, and most importantly, it is found that people who eat together develop stronger family ties and bonds through time, through generational time.
I was waiting for that one.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
was.
And like, I don't know, as a parent with 3 kids, you know, I always hope that as my kids grow up and move out, that they'll always want to return and spend time together. So I think of family dinner as a way that it's kind of like my insurance policy to bring them back home for the rest of my life.
I like that. And I find that at having older teenagers myself, that it's one of the few things, the common bonds we have at this point. You know, my boys are at the age they're almost ready to leave and they're doing their own things and they have their own interest. We all need to eat. We all love to eat. And when we share time together at the table, yes, we'll get to the chaos part later in our conversation, but I also kind of get to know them a bit. I stay connected and I'm witnessing their life for a half an hour or an hour every night when the rest of the day I might not get that opportunity. So
Yeah.
it's a big deal for us right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So true.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to go back and I wanted to share a little bit of the experience of my grandmother and my mom, but I also wanted you to be able to do the same thing. And I hope that people who are listening right now might take some time this evening to really consider your grandmothers and your mothers. And maybe it's your grandfathers and your dads too. Maybe they were the primary people, right?
Or your
Maybe,
aunt or your stepmom or
yeah, totally. There's so many. Maybe,
yeah.
and you know, maybe it wasn't your family. Maybe you sat at the neighbor's house for meals a lot. Maybe you got invited there quite a bit. So both of my grandmothers, you know, they lived in post-war times. So food was really, really precious. Really, really precious. There were 3 meals served a day, and there weren't any snacks served in between. And there was a kitchen table, there was a formal dining table, there were sets of dishes for both rooms. There was like a process for polishing silverware and silver. Table manners and behavior and etiquette was like rigid. Really, like if you can imagine, like I think of it as like intense monastic practice. It was really strict. I mean, children weren't even allowed to speak unless they were spoken to. So children were totally silent at the table. My mom always told this story. um, of any time there was any misconduct at the dinner table, my grandfather, this is so embarrassing to say, but I
Mhm.
think there's other people who have had the story like this. He would grab her wrist, hold her hand down on the table, and take the fork and wrap it down on top of her knuckles. And like, so you didn't ever get out of place. You didn't pick up a fork or a utensil or a napkin until the person who had served the food had sat down. You
Yeah.
didn't pick up those things until grace or gratitude was expressed at the table.
And you come from an English tradition, right? So that's
Yeah.
the case, yeah.
Yeah. This is all
British,
British
yeah.
influenced. Yeah.
Hmm. So
And then,
I had the German experience, which had similarities but was different.
right.
Yeah.
And do you have recollection of what it was like with either of your grandmothers or grandfathers?
I do. More so the one set of grandparents, because the other ones were a lot older and I didn't get to spend a lot of time with them. But the ones, my mother's parents, it was very formal. When we were there visiting, dinner was always, like you said, it was in the formal dining room. It was the big event of the day. Half the day was spent by my grandmother getting ready for dinner. She would dress for dinner. I mean, these aren't wealthy people. This was just cultural. We would be served in her beautiful special plates, and we all had to have. My grandfather would stay dressed after work or put on a jacket. And like you said, there was no food between lunch and dinner. So everybody was hungry and excited for dinner. I remember always being excited for dinner. And I remember always having to be very careful and mindful about manners and how the whole, what's the word I'm looking for? How the event unfolded. There was a rhythm to it and everybody knew what to expect. You sit down and then you wait for everybody and then someone says a blessing maybe and then you pass the food around, and there was a way that happened, and you weren't supposed to take too much and you had to wait till everybody got all like that kind of stuff. I remember all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it took up, an hour to 2 hours of your evening.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
because you
what I
couldn't leave the table until everybody was done.
that's right. So I do remember that, and it's funny. I'm feeling emotions um, of happiness and sadness, and I miss that. I wish I could
Yeah.
go back and do it again. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, we've talked about this before, and probably lots of people listening have dishes in their cupboard from their grandparents. And like those dishes have witnessed so many dinners, so much ritual, so many stories over time.
And those, in that regard, it's a very valuable heirloom. I know
Yeah.
there's a tendency with the younger generations not to value hand me down anything from the previous generations anymore.
Yeah.
Everybody's minimalist and everybody's Marie Kondoing their house and getting rid of everything. And I almost did that. And my mom died a few years ago, and I hummed and hawed on some of this. And ultimately, I decided to take the china and bring it home. And I'm so happy I did that. We've used it a number of times, and I'm so surprised at what that does to me. It makes me feel connected to my mom. It makes me reminisce about beautiful times with family earlier. It makes me feel like the event's special. Like, who would have thought? Unless I experienced it, I would have never guessed it. And I almost gave it up without even knowing that I was going to have that experience. So
Yeah.
that's, yeah. And it's different than a piece of furniture to me, that just for the reasons you said. It's stuff that your grandmother held and might have served you dinner on, and
Yeah.
it's really neat.
Well used.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And I mean, that generation gave up a lot,
mhm.
especially the women of that generation. Um, one of my grandmothers was a nuclear chemist. And,
I
you
didn't
know,
know that.
yeah, yeah. So,
Wow.
she was incredibly educated. She was a ballistics engineer during the war. And when she got married and had kids, she gave up her work. It was expected that she wouldn't work.
Right.
And so she could really focus on meals. I actually don't think she loved it that much, this one grandmother, but it was her position and her role, and she did it with great dedication. So then, like, how my mom received the traditions that were passed down from her parents to her. And my own family dinners growing up, I mean, we had family dinner together every single night, absolutely every single night. And even the way that our childhood events were, there was always a way to have family dinner. It wasn't as intense as it is now. We each had our own place at the family table, and those chairs never changed.
Same.
Um, one of us had the job of setting the table, one had the job of clearing the table.
Yep.
There was a lot of precision into how the table was set. You didn't touch your plate until my mom sat down. There was always grace said. And, like I can remember my dad, this is like, here's what got passed down. So we had to sit up really, really straight, and we weren't allowed to lean against our chairs. And if we slouched at the dinner table, my dad would take his fist and like slam it down on the kitchen table, and we would like, pop up in total shock.
Yeah. I used to get the pinch under the table.
Right. Oh, that's much kinder. Much kinder. And I don't know if you remember, but like my brother and I would just be itching at the table for everybody to be done. And we would actually try and make the conversation go smoother and be really appeasing, because we wanted my dad to say, okay, you're excused now. And so that we could go out and play after dinner.
I remember that too. Oh my goodness.
That was like the most important thing. Can we like wrap this up and get outside to play? And we weren't allowed to leave the table until my father gave a formal pass to be able to leave.
Yeah, we had to ask to be excused.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we knew we knew there was no point in asking if they were still eating.
Yeah.
The second the last bite was taken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I learned so many of my family stories and the history of my family by sitting at the family dinner table. We were allowed to speak freely at my dinner table. Any topic was completely open. Any kind of debate was completely open.
Same with my family. Exactly.
Yeah. Anybody was welcome into my family home for dinner, even if it was unplanned. My mom would just stretch the food to make it go around. Yeah, and again, like my mom gave up a lot and my dad. Actually, my dad never prepared dinner. But there was like a place for him. He held the form. He might not have made the dinner and put it on the table, but he had a place in holding the form of how the process went. My mom and my dad worked in collaboration together to be committed to that over a period of time.
Yeah, it does take a commitment, more so today than ever.
Yeah. Yeah, I've actually been warned, by my 3 kids. I'm not allowed to reveal too much about what's happening in my own family.
Just call them my friend's family.
Yeah, there's this family I know.
Yeah. So just a sidebar there and we didn't talk about this today when we were preparing for the show, but it just occurred to me that we did family dinner all through my elementary maybe years and maybe middle school. And then my dad got a job and he wasn't home very much because he was overseas a lot. And I think it had a much bigger impact on my family than I realize now, because all those things you said we had, and then all of a sudden we didn't. And there were some parts of us that we loved it because there was freedom and there wasn't so much rigor and rules, but there was no longer like the full ritual or that form you mentioned. It wasn't the same, and it felt different, and it didn't hit the spot as much. And then we ended up slowly abandoning a lot of it, other than the special dinners in the dining room, which we'll talk about later, I guess, because that was,
Jody, I mean, now that you say that, My mom took a job probably when I was in, I'm going to say like grade 9 and 10, and she wouldn't get home until about 6 o'clock. And I stopped coming home actually
Mm.
after school during those 2 years. And I went to friends' houses and I was drinking. Um, I mean, I don't say this as like a blame thing.
No.
It's just what I chose to do.
But also the statistic you stated at the beginning,
Yeah.
family dinner has a positive impact on how teens manage some of those decisions.
Yeah.
There's a lot of truth to that, because my we got out of school and we could do whatever we wanted until my mom got home from work and my dad wasn't around. So yeah, we didn't
Yeah.
have to be home. We didn't have to set the table. We didn't have to help make dinner. Nobody expected that. So we had freedom.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can really remember not wanting to go home when my parents weren't home. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't want to go home and be lonely in my house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Now we get to talk about the reality of modern family dinner, I think.
Oh, we were going to tell our family travel stories. I mean, we can say, I mean, everybody knows it's a gong show. I could actually swear here and say what kind of show it really is, but family dinner these days, oh my God, it's not pretty. It's not pretty at my house. Um, so are we going to tell her before we get into like what it's really like at our dinner tables right now? Are we going to tell a story about our family trips, like crazy family trips?
Sure.
Okay. It's kind of like sidestepping dinner, but
You're going to tell the card shop story.
yeah, I want to channel the Griswolds here for a minute, and talk about a family vacation. You know, when you plan a family vacation, you have this like beautiful idea of how you and your wonderful family are going to make the most magical memories for all of life, and
Yeah.
everything's going to be so perfect.
Yeah.
So, my parents took us on this road trip down the east coast of the States. We were going to do a big historical tour. We were going to go to Shenandoah Valley, go to see Thomas Jefferson's house, learn about the Civil
Civil War.
War. Yeah, we were going to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad he collected hockey cards at the time. Like, it was actually a big deal for him. And he had this one card that he had to get, and it was at this very special shop somewhere, I think in Pennsylvania. And so we
To set
drove.
the stage for anybody who's not our age, back when we did those family trips, there was no internet. You had to call in advance and make reservations. You had to order brochures. You had to remember that, or buy
Oh,
travel
yeah,
guides. And my mom had to spend. My mom was the travel planner, and she spent weeks, if not months, arranging these holidays. Right? Because
totally.
everything with phone calls and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, you had like a car map that you'd have to get outside of your car and spread it on the hood to figure out where the hell you're going.
if
Right?
if you were the type of man that would look at a map.
Well, that's exactly the problem. So my dad's trying to find the card shop. You know, we hit 6 hours in the car,
Oh,
7 hours, 10 hours.
oh.
My dad is reducing the amount of times we stop to pee or get food. People are like really uncomfortable in the car. He won't stop and ask for directions at all. And like my parents have this big, huge fight. We're curious. We're like, are my parents getting divorced? This is hell. My brother and I have already pummeled each other a couple of times. And, it's just like, I want
You're
to go home.
eating all the food off the floor, like
Oh,
old
yeah.
Cheerios or whatever you
Yeah.
find.
We just want to go home. And
Yeah.
finally, it's like the sun is going down. My dad decides, all right, he's going to stop and ask for directions. And when he pulls over to this gas station to ask about this precious card shop, we're all standing there at the side of the car, and the person says, oh, yes, that place. It burnt down 3 days ago. And like everyone starts crying, everyone's yelling at each other,
Yeah.
and we all pile back in the car, and it's like dead silence, you know? And you think like, oh God, at the time it was like, this is just horrible. I want to go home. I never want to do this again. And yet every time my family gets together, this story comes up. And we tell this story with so much humor, with so much love,
And pride.
and
Because
pride.
it's family history and lore, I guess. It
Totally.
transforms into something, which is amazing, particularly based on, for some families who don't have a lot of connection or knowledge around their family, genealogy or history. You can still create it, and you create it in these crazy, chaotic, awful moments.
Totally.
Yeah.
Sometimes our gong show, our horrific family chaos, actually becomes our beloved humorous stories. In this generation that we retell, and our kids listen to the stories, and it passes along through time.
Oral traditions.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Jody?
Yeah, I shared with you a few. The weekend, every weekend we would go to the lake or whatever, and usually my brother and I'd be barfing in the back, and the dog would be barfing in the front. And my dad would be racing like a race car driver. My mom would be screaming at him to slow down. That was every weekend. But we did a European trip once, rented a camper van, and my dad is literally like, I think he's a brother from another mother with Chevy Chase, or his character at least. So we would be driving along with our camper van, and everybody'd be honking and waving and blinking their lights, and my dad would be driving along going, wow, everybody's friendly here, this is so great. And at the last minute he realizes he's about to go through under an overpass. It would have ripped the top, including me, off the just ripped the whole camper apart. So he veered off the road at the last second and crossed train tracks and just narrowly escaped getting hit by a train. That was one of them. And then later in the trip, my mom and him were fighting all day, and we arrived outside of Paris, and we were too late to get into the campground that my mom had worked so hard to reserve. And so we had to park the camper out on the street, and my dad and her were fighting about how far off the street they had to get. So we ended up parking it on the curb. So our whole camper van was on the side all night, and you couldn't sleep because you'd rolled on your bed. And the next morning when I woke up, I opened the little windows or the drapes, and I looked out, and we were in the middle of rush hour in like 6 lanes of wall-to-wall traffic going into Paris in this camper van, camping in the middle of like a freeway. And it's ridiculous. And we were so angry, and we yell at each other and have all these crazy things. And it was one of our best family memories ever. Every single time we got together at Christmas, particularly, we would tell those stories.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Making me happy sharing them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, what's family dinner like for you now? Or what was it like when your kids were growing up? What's it like now?
When we were talking about that today, it was weird. You go through phases, right? When we had little kids, we didn't eat together because often I'd feed the kids early, and then Sean and I might eat later, or he'd come home too late and I'd be asleep, or I just eat whatever's left over on the tray of the, high chair. You go from that to all through the different phases when you have children. And now, especially during the COVID pandemic, there's been a lot of conflict. There's been a lot of debating over whether what the government is saying and their approach is the right thing to do or not. There's been a lot of debate over whether the ethics of everyone's duty to self-isolate to protect the vulnerable. So, I've got these kids who are almost launched, and they're independent thinkers, and they're smart, and they're doing what they're supposed to do developmentally. They're challenging everything. They're questioning everything. They're independent thinkers, and that's great. But there's nothing relaxing about the dinner table right now. It's very intense, and there's a lot of debate and a lot of sharing of emotion, and sometimes just downloading of emotion, which is fine. That's where we are and what we're doing, but that's what it's like. And as for all those rituals we had growing up and with my grandparents, like, I miss that. We don't get spiffy or tidy up or brush your hair or take off your sweatpants for dinner, which I would kind of like. We don't have our own chairs. We don't have a formal dining room. I live with three men, so there's a lot of resistance about table manners. There's a lot of resistance about that it's a waste of time and silly to set the table properly. A constant reminding that you wait until it's usually my husband that cooks, waiting for dad to sit down before we start. Even they're at the stage now, they're like, yeah, I'm not really hungry. Or what are you making tonight? Like it's like a restaurant. They're going to decide whether they want to join us or not based on what you're cooking, right? All those things aren't awesome. They aren't awesome. But they are what they are. And then of course, if, you know, pretty unhappy, you don't want prisoners at dinner, but you know, they want to get up and go. They want to eat and go. And that's not fun either. So that's kind of our experience right now.
Yeah.
For you know, the day to day. Of course, yeah, we have awesome dinners now and then, but that's the average day to day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds so familiar.
Does
so
it?
Familiar. It does. Like, for all that I love family dinner, for all that I love about the great importance of ritual and manners, I have to say, I really struggle to maintain the legacy that my mom passed down to me.
Mm-hmm. That's important.
And it is. And like, it still really puzzles me why I have such a hard time just passing this along.
I know that we talked about this when the kids were littler. I remember this whole idea of manners was a hot topic for a long time. And
yeah.
We all tried a lot.
Yeah, my mom would she sent me to grooming classes. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know what it is. I mean, I would say at this point, well, during COVID, we're eating together all the time. All the time. So I can tell you what it's like right now. We're eating better than we have in a really long time. We're spending more time together at meals than we have in a really long time. The table is like 50% of the time it gets made up really nice, and the other, it's like just throwing the stuff on the table. Getting everybody down to the table to eat before the food actually gets cold, that seems to be a major challenge. Mm-hmm. Getting everybody to participate in like getting dinner onto the table and then clearing everything away and tidying it up. We always fight about that all the time. And there was no fighting about that. I don't know like what it was about my mom and dad. They had this martial law presence that things happened.
Mom had the wooden spoon at my house.
Oh yeah, the wooden spoon might have had a big impact on that, prior to COVID, I would say we were only having family dinner together about like real sit-down dinners 3 times a week.
We were probably less than that before COVID.
Yeah.
Just because of everybody's got different schedules, after school things, sports, lessons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a non-negotiable. Our one non-negotiable is Sunday night. Mm-hmm. It's non-negotiable. We can never plan anything. Nothing will ever trump family dinner on Sunday night.
You're an inspiration to us for that, because that's what I want and that's what I aspire to. And I love that you guys do that. And that's a good reminder. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, once, God, I'm probably going to get in trouble for this, but
say it to your neighbors.
Yeah. Once there was somebody I knew who tried to not be at Thanksgiving dinner. Oh. And it was like, it became this massive family debate for a whole month. And there was a lot of conflict. It was actually kind of painful. But as a family, just having to navigate that challenge and that conflict, we kind of built something strong.
Yes.
Yeah. And like now nobody would ever trespass on Thanksgiving dinner, ever.
I was what I was connecting to there was more the idea that even though we have these tough dinners a lot of time, particularly now, even though we're spending a lot of time eating together every night almost. We're having tough conversations and there's a lot of emotion going on at dinner. But I also feel like we're connecting better than we have in a long time, even through that
Yeah.
hardship and those arguments and those emotions and disagreements. Like, we haven't talked this much in a long time.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I get the sense that they haven't felt heard like this in a long time.
Wow.
And that's we're, like you said, we're building something here. There's a really valuable product out of putting in that time connecting, even if it seems chaotic and exhausting at the time.
Yeah.
We're building intimacy and connection, and that, just like the stories of the family vacations, I think you look back on that and somehow that's transformed over time. It transforms into something more positive and beautiful. You don't remember so much the bad stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
It's true. Like it says something. Maybe 1 in 50 dinners becomes the golden dinner. Where like, the parents sit down, they're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's happening here, but
Who
this
are
is
you people?
amazing. This is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Right? And then there's like 49 other dinners that are total gong shows. But that's the place where resilience is built,
Yeah.
through all of that conflict. And not only that, like, what does it say when we come to these family dinners and they're so chaotic and we're willing to return over and over again? Like,
That's
talk
the
about,
ritual, right? That you were talking
that's the
about.
ritual. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not it's not precise all the time. It's not perfect. It's super, super messy, but we're committed to returning to it over and over again. Or even if it's like you tried to have 4 family dinners this week and you hit 1, and you just like never give up and keep trying week after week. Never
That's
give up.
that is a commitment to family and to one another in a
Yeah.
big way. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder too, Jody, you know, our culture is certainly changing. It has changed a lot. And I always am curious about, like, are we going to be moved by the culture, or are we going to develop and form the culture? Like, at what point do we actually get to push back? Do you know what I mean? Like, sometimes we'll have, the school will schedule some meeting at 6 o'clock. And like the irritating mom that I am, I'll type back, would love to attend, but it's family dinner time. Happy to come at 4 or 7, right?
Right.
I'm that mom. Like,
You're committed and you got to prioritize that above all things. It's
absolutely.
that critically important to your family. Yeah. And your connection. I get that. But, and that, circling back to what you were saying, for all of us, even my teens right now, and all, for us to show up every night and try to eat together, even if sometimes somebody storms off or something goes sideways, that speaks volumes that they keep coming.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. We make each other cry sometimes at the dinner table, right?
Then I
And
think back, like, to the family dinners on years gone by. We used to have big family Christmases at my parents' house, and the aunts and uncles would come, and the cousins and the grandparents, and we'd all be in this house in the country, socked in together for like a week. And I could talk to you all night about crazy stories. Um, but we all came back.
yeah,
We all drove each other crazy. It was like some funny Hollywood movie, all the crazy stuff that went down, and the fights and the ridiculous things that happen.
totally.
You always show
Totally.
up.
My great aunt getting totally drunk.
We're keeping her
Christmas
drunk on
dinners.
purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think that we talked a lot about that, as not only as time goes by do these stories transform, and they create family history. They end up making us feel longing, and holding a lot of value for those times in our lives. But we also talked about how it helps us build connection with other humans. So you share your stories with me, and we connect over our stories of our own families and what we share, and funny things and tough times, and that we're, by having these family dinners and these experiences and commitments, showing up with our family every night, they're getting that gift of having these family stories that they then share with other
Right.
people to build human connections.
Right. Like if we don't eat dinner together, if we don't have a place where we promise to gather on a regular basis to share stories that have passed or to build new stories, what will our kids have
That's right.
later? What about the next generation? Sometimes it's like we're not just having dinner for now, we're having dinner for later, for like 30 years down the road.
Yeah, we're modeling for them and their future families and their future community.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. In so many ways. I mean, we've talked a lot tonight about human connection, family connection, but we could have gone in a totally different path and talked about our relationship with food, with the way that food is grown, food security, how it arrives at our table, um, our body cycle, like our body, physical, psychological relationship to food and how it came to us, all the way to climate change.
It's true. The act of cooking and preparing food and sourcing food is an important reminder and foundation to model that to our kids, to get them to understand,
Yeah,
as opposed to going to a fast food restaurant and you just grab something and throw it in your mouth and you have no.
yeah. Sometimes, Jody, for a lot of us who get in cars in the morning to go to work into office buildings, food might be the most intimate relationship with the earth we have and
Mm-hmm.
experience all day long.
That's
And
frightening, but you're right.
yeah, and
Yeah.
sometimes we don't even know it.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that, and I didn't prepare to talk about that because we didn't talk about that today. Now you're blowing my mind live on TV. What the heck?
No, but you know about it. You have what, 26 chickens? You know.
24. But yeah, they keep disappearing. But yes, and and it totally impacts your relationship with your food, and particularly the eggs that you're eating and where they come from. And
Yeah,
yeah, it's amazing. Whenever I develop a relationship with an animal, it always is transformational for me, and it's very impactful. It changes me forever, permanently. Um, and the same thing happens through gardening and growing your own food.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I think there's another example of just having food right now. We should be very grateful
yeah,
for, and um, that's a good opportunity. Doing family dinners, especially right now, to be like, wow, we have food in the middle of a global pandemic. That's pretty amazing, and how fortunate
yeah,
we, yeah.
yeah.
Hmm. But more important, to have each other,
Have each other. Yeah,
warts and all, fights and all, tears and
yeah,
all, because we're experiencing it together. We're sharing this experience, this really hard experience together, and we keep showing up every night to share it together, and it's going to transform into something really solid and beautiful, and also some funny things when we look back on it.
totally, totally. I know. I think of all the moms and dads who currently have like 1 and 2 year olds who are just
Oh.
learning, just beginning to learn to eat. It's like, gosh, when I would arrive at dinner at that stage, I would be just so exhausted, and then we'd have dinner and my kids would have like washed their hair with their food, like
Yeah,
putting it in their face and their hair, and there's food all over the floor, and dinner's done. And as a parent, it's like, oh my God, now
thank goodness.
the bath, the
Yeah.
bedtime, the cleanup. How many more dinners do we have? Like, how many more years are these kids here? Oh my God. And every stage keeps getting better. It keeps getting more interesting. And it's building the fruit and legacy for a whole lifetime, an entire lifetime in our family, in our community, with our land, with our food, the security of our food, and full integrative health, really.
And it's a way to celebrate our heritage and our families of origin and the people that are no longer with us. I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
There's not enough of that, right? We used to live how many hundreds of years ago, some cultures still do today, in larger family units. And we miss out on the wisdom of all that. And family dinner, that's what I love about family dinner. When we're having one actually, now that we're going to have a safe family dinner on Sunday, but you know, to have grandkids with grandparents and everybody around, and even if everybody's quirky and weird, or so-and-so's drives the other one crazy, or you can't relate, like you're passing down, you're really getting to know each other, and you're getting to hear the family stories. And
yeah.
I never come away from one of those dinners without learning something new about someone.
True. It's so true. So true.
And that's really cool. So maybe hopefully after this talk, a lot of people will rethink family dinners as a really healthy ritual for their family and all the benefits, even in the dark days of family dinners.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
maybe with some of these rules loosening up, we can start celebrating it more with less stress, and maybe making it more purposeful routine, you know. I'm going to try to do what you do, and I'm going to try to get back to practicing Sunday dinners, because I know you guys have a long-standing thing as well. You invite a different guest to your home every Sunday, or you did that for a while.
Yeah, we did. It hasn't happened, I mean, in a good 3 months at our house, but I really miss it. I totally miss it. It's I love the feeling. Sorry, my dog scratching. I love the feeling of knowing that somebody's coming for dinner, and that it just feels like such a gesture to prepare food for them, you know, to
it's
honor.
an event. Everybody gets excited. You tidy up the house a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I really want them to come into my home and feel like they're totally taken care of, and that everything that I've done is really for them from beginning to end. And
It's an
they're
act
just
of
the
love.
guest.
Yeah.
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 They don't have to like make something and bring it. They're just the guest.
Yeah. This is getting me excited.
I know. Are you
These...
cooking dinner on Mother's Day?
No.
No. Okay. Whew. Whew.
There's a funny meme flying around that I shared as well that's pretty funny. Like Mother's Day, my mother's gone, and I like to honor my friends who are mothers and my mother-in-law. But at the end of the day, that's my husband's job, not my job. And it's my day. I'm a mother. So I'm going to try really hard to be, which isn't easy for me. I'm going to accept the love and whatever's given to me.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Sweet.
And I wish you a happy Mother's Day, and I wish everybody's a happy Mother's Day. We're going to time out here in about a minute. So I'm going to sign off. I'm going to thank you so much for this time together and your thoughts and all the preparation you did for this. It was super interesting. Can't wait to hike with you and talk more about it and tell more family stories.
Yeah, me too. I really want to see pictures of people's family dinners too.
Yes.
You know, like if people are out there having family dinner and you want to take pictures and send them to me.
That's a great idea.
Send them through Instagram.
Okay.
I totally want to see. I want to see your smiling faces.
Okay. Or in the heat of the moment.
Yeah. Or like forks in the air.
Yeah. Good idea. Well,
thanks, Jody.
Thanks everybody for watching. Don't forget, you can watch this in a couple of days on our YouTube channel. Learn more about the charity at thirdspacecanada.org, and join me and EJ Link next Tuesday night. He's one of the summer graduate student interns helping our charity this summer. So we'll see you then, and happy Mother's Day. Thanks, Melissa.
Bye. Thanks, Jody.
Bye, everybody.